Greetings, beautiful people. I once read in some periodical about a collapsed hedge fund. It reported that they had built a Potemkin's Village of returns. Potemkin's Village. And I wondered just who was this Potemkin and what was so fake about his villages. The answer still confuses me. Potemkin's villages. What are Potemkin's villages? The name comes from the 1760s when Grigory Potemkin, who was having an affair with the Empress of Russia, Catherine the Great, he was given the very prestigious position of Governor General of the newly conquered territory of Crimea. Oh, how history repeats itself. In his absence from the court, the courtiers started spreading rumors about his lackadaisical approach to governing, and indeed they speculated that he hadn't turned a single sod of soil. Naturally, this made Catherine quite worried. She was also quite eager to see her lover again, and she announced that she'd be making a trip by barge down the Dnieper River to see Potemkin again. Naturally, this sent him in a worried panic, and he arranged to put on a fabulous show for her, and he hired hundreds of actors and set designers, painters, herds of livestock, for he was going to welcome her. In 1761, her slow-moving barge came down the Dnieper River, and she was astounded to see there were smiling peasants on the riverbanks who were waving at her, so eager to see her, for she was the Empress, of course, who wouldn't be? And indeed, there were lush new buildings, freshly painted, and there was all this livestock, cows and lambs and horses going down the desolate roads. Oh! She was so happy. Potemkin was indeed the right man for the job. Then her barge would dock at night, and all the buildings would be pulled down, for they were made of paper, and all the cattle and all the rest of it was herded into boats, and the peasants would swap costumes with one another, for they were stage actors. And then they would all go down to the next bend of the river, and then by morning there was a fresh lick of paint on all the sets, and they would do it all over again. And they continued in this fashion until they had reached the end of the river, at which point I'm sure that Catherine the Great congratulated Potemkin in unspeakable ways while her ship was docked. And indeed, he had deceived her. Or at least this is the story that Saxonian historian George Adolf von Hellberg told the story in the 18th century. Imagine my abject disappointment when I found out this is completely untrue. Confused? Well, let me explain. Villages built by Potemkin were very real. In fact, for over 300 years, they have actually stayed in place. One of them, Sebastopol, is currently where the Russian nuclear submarine fleet is docked. Not only that, but we actually know of another famous person on this barge. The Holy Roman Emperor, Francis, who incidentally was the father of Marie Antoinette. He was actually on the barge with Empress Catherine. And we know for a fact that the villagers were real villagers. They were real peasants, not actors, because they were quite enterprising. They actually tried to sell their wares to the emperor and empress on the barge. I don't think Potemkin would have written that in the script. And yet, this is the thing that gets me. For 300 years, these cities have stood because they're made out of brick and stone. But so has this completely hogwash story. I suppose it was helped along by the obvious political dichotomies of the Cold War, but the phrase has endured and in fact has been used quite aptly, such as to describe the Nazis' Thysenstadt, which was a fake model concentration camp which they used to con the Red Cross into believing that prisoners were treated humanely. And then there's the North Korean border town where no one actually lives. All the peasants are actually spies for the North Korean military. Just for the record, Marie Antoinette had a sort of Potemkin's village of her own constructed in the middle of Versailles for her own personal amusement. Remember, she was the daughter of Francis. But while we're clearing up historical falsehoods, she never actually said If the people don't have bread, let them eat cake. But the story of Potemkin's villages are just as fake as what the phrase Potemkin's village would profess to refer to. The story of fakery is fake, but the villages that were purportedly fake are true. I'll let you wrap your head around that one. Until next time, I'm Constantine. Please stay sublime. Ah.